Today we are taking a look at the RG351P. P is for plastic, and the 351 means this is an upgrade over the previous retro handheld king, the RG350, 350M, and 350P of 2019 and 2020. Now this has a few changes over the previous model RG350s, so we'll do a little bit of comparison right now. Again, with the previous king, the RG350 has a beautiful screen, great metal casing, excellent build quality, and lots of awesome features. But the 351 has a new and improved CPU inside, so it's got a little more robust gameplay power inside of it. But there are some drawbacks, and mainly most of those are due to software issues, not so much hardware limitations. But as it stands, let's go ahead and compare them. So looking at them side by side, right out of the gate, you can see that the RG351P is slightly longer and slightly wider than the RG350M. Rotating over to the right hand side on the RG351P, we've got the volume wheel here, and on the RG350M, we've got the power button over here on the right hand side. Up top, we have our L1, L2 buttons, our OTG ports for charging. The RG350M has the HDMI out, whereas the RG351 does not have that, so that is a loss of functionality there. We also have the headphone 3.5mm jacks, as well as the R2 and the R1 buttons. On the left hand side of the unit, the RG351P has the power button, and then we have the volume up and down toggle buttons on the RG350M. And then on the bottom, things change slightly again. We've got the dual stereo speakers, which is great, but you'll notice up top on the RG350P that we only have one single micro SD card slot, whereas the RG350M had two, one for your games and one for your operating system itself. On the RG351P, the operating system and the games are all stored on one SD card, which is nice for convenience of not having to worry about losing one of these SD cards. But if you're going to be adding games, you definitely want to make sure you back up that SD card and you don't, corrupt it anytime. Otherwise, you're going to mess it up and you're going to be up S Creek without a paddle. This operating system on the RG351P has got a much cleaner, nice design. You can toggle through the various different game systems, and this did come preloaded with a 64GB SD card filled with all sorts of great systems and games. Some games and systems that you could play on this that you weren't able to play on the RG350 because of the limited processing power on this, and now we got that new and improved chip inside that we can actually play some more advanced systems. However, there are some software limitations and drawbacks currently, since this is just released in early September and just now being in developers' hands, so hopefully they'll be able to fix those issues with future firmware updates. I mean, this just looks so much more aesthetically pleasing than what we saw on the RG350 as far as picking your emulators and games and things like that. And also, there is a change in the screen. So the RG350M actually has the better screen. It has a 640 by 480 IPS display, whereas the RG351P has a much lower resolution. Still a great screen, but obviously when you put them side by side, you can really tell on this 320 by 480 IPS display. So kind of a bummer that it's a little bit different resolution and you're going to have some screen stretching. However, a lot of that can be fixed in your emulator settings, so you can toggle your aspect ratios to correct those screen stretches in those games that you don't really like that look. So checking out the gameplay performance, all your older systems, your 8-bit through 16-bit, they're going to run fine. Your Nintendo, your Game Boy Advance, Super Nintendo, those are all going to run great. And again, looking back at this user interface is much improved over the previous releases. Said you'll go in here. A lot of these are already scrubbed, so you have your images. Simply pick your game, scroll through. Nice layout. I really like how this is set up. It's, again, so much better than the way it was set up on the previous RG350 lineups. Then we also have some additions, so like Nintendo 64, Dreamcast, PSP. Now it's kind of a mixed bag, and again, this is software related, not so much the hardware. This hardware is more than capable of running Nintendo 64 and Dreamcast games. Unfortunately, they just aren't using the best emulators out there. So you will have some Nintendo 64 games that run well, and you'll find some of them that run very, very poorly, very slow, stuttery. But for the most part, some of these are very enjoyable and very playable. So we'll test out Mario Kart here. Got him. As you can hear, there's a lot of scratching and audio issues with the music in the background. Dreamcast, like I said, the performance, it's not really so much based on the hardware, it's the software issue here. I think it's using FlyCast as the stock emulator, and that's just not going to cut it. It'd be really nice if we had an Android version and we could run something like ReaCast or something other than what we've got right out of the gate here. So out of the box, Dreamcast, it's about a 50-50 shot of what games are going to work well. You're going to have to do some customization if you want some better performance out of Dreamcast, Nintendo 64, or even Sega Saturn games. PSP has got a couple of games on here that have obviously been hand selected because they run rather well on this device. However, the vast majority of other PSP games are not going to run smoothly at all without some software development optimization in the background. And honestly, just right out of the gate, I'm just going to tell you PSP for the most part is a no-go. However, a nice new addition over the RG350 series is the ability to play the Nintendo DS games. Build quality overall, very happy with it, even though it is the plastic case design and there will likely be inevitably a 351M with a metal case design. This does feel well made and sturdy. The buttons, the joysticks, the D-pad, everything feel very, very good in the hand. So at the end of the day, should you buy the RG351P over something like the RG350M? Maybe. I mean, it's really hard to say. It really depends on if you value things like the HDMI out that the RG350M series typically has, and if you don't really care about the lower resolution screen. Like I said, out of the box right now, this does play some more advanced systems, but it's a bit of a mixed bag. It's a little bit of 50-50. In the future, I would expect the support for things like Dreamcast, Nintendo 64, and even PSP to be expanded and much easier to play without hassle on the RG351P. But as it stands right now, for $100, if you already have something like this, not worth the upgrade in my opinion. However, if you don't already have an RG350, then yes, this is the device to get, and this is the device that you're going to want to have. Anyways, that does it for today's video. I hope you found the information helpful. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and as always, thanks for watching, guys. It really means a lot.